Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on an absolutely mind-bending journey. We are traveling from thousands of years of ancient Indian philosophy straight into the absolute weirdest, most cutting-edge corners of modern quantum physics. And why? Well, to answer one ultimate, kind of terrifying question. Do you actually have free will? Okay, so let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We're starting macro with the eras of Indian philosophy, breaking down the Ostic versus Gnostic schools and tracking Neo-Vedanta to modern thinkers. Then we'll funnel right down into a massive scientific payoff with the mystery of free will, physics and the block universe, and finally, the free will paradox. All right, Section 1, the eras of Indian philosophy, tracing the macro history. When we look back at the history, Indian philosophy definitely didn't just happen overnight. Right around 1500 BCE, we hit the Vedic age, which gave us the Upanishads and massive concepts like Atman or the soul and moksha, ultimate liberation. But the really fascinating era to me is the post-Vedic Sutra age. Before writing was everywhere, how did you pass down all this complex philosophy? Well, you used sutras. Think of sutras like these incredibly dense, brilliant mathematical formulas that literally compressed entire universes of knowledge into short, super memorable phrases. Fast forward, we see the Islamic era and the Bhakti movement, leading right up to a 19th century philosophical renaissance. Now let's talk about this concept called mithya. Popularized by the brilliant ancient philosopher Shankaracharya, mithya is, well, it's a wild idea. It proposes that the physical world we are sitting in right now isn't strictly real, but it isn't entirely fake either. It's a grand illusion. It's kind of like being stuck inside a hyper-realistic, temporary video game simulation. While you're playing, it feels 100% real, but the second you step outside of it, you realize the whole shebang was just a construct. Keep this tucked in the back of your mind, because modern physics is going to bring us right back to this exact idea. Section 2, Aistic versus Gnostic schools, a misunderstood divide. The classical Indian view brilliantly illustrates a huge misconception here. If you look at these terms strictly through a Western lens, you'd probably think an Ostic is a theist who believes in God, and a Gnostic is an atheist who completely denies God. But in classical Indian philosophy, it literally has absolutely nothing to do with God. It's entirely about evidence. Being Ostic means you accept the ancient Vedic texts as your ultimate proof or testimony. Gnostic just means you reject the Vedas as that ultimate proof. So the thinkers who accepted the Vedas, they formed what we call the Ostic, or Orthodox, schools. There are 6 classical schools here, often called the Shad Darshan. We're talking Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Together, these 6 incredibly detailed frameworks form the absolute bedrock of what we know today as Hindu philosophy, or Sanatan Dharma. On the flip side, we've got the rebel schools, the Gnostic or heterodox thinkers. This group includes Charvaka, which was just hardcore materialism, right alongside Jainism and Buddhism. These schools boldly rejected Vedic authority entirely. And what I absolutely love about this is that it proves rigorous, intense debate isn't some modern invention. It has literally been the lifeblood of Indian thought for thousands of years. Moving on to Section 3, Neo-Vedanta to modern thinkers. Philosophy meets nationalism. Fast forward with me to the 19th and 20th centuries. India is under the heavy burden of British colonialism, and all this ancient philosophy had to rapidly evolve to meet the moment. Thinkers like Swami Vivekananda looked at classical Vedanta, which, focused heavily on personal liberation and the idea that the world is an illusion. But there's a glaring problem there, right? If you truly believe the world is just a meaningless dream, why on earth would you fight for freedom? Why resist colonialism? Enter Neo-Vedanta. It completely transformed these ancient spiritual ideas into a powerful, unifying, nationalistic force. It shifted the focus towards social equality and political action, which really just proves that philosophy isn't just for monks meditating in caves, it literally shapes nations. All right, Section 4, the mystery of free will, the illusion of control. Let's see how all this builds into the absolute most crucial part of our explainer. We're bridging these ancient concepts of the self directly to our modern understanding of choice. I really want you to stop and think about this for a second. Every single decision you made today, what you ate, what you're wearing, even the fact that you clicked on this explainer right now. What makes you, you? And more importantly, are you truly the one making those choices, or is something else entirely pulling the strings? Philosophically and scientifically, there are 3 massive threats to your free will. First up, God, or divine predestination. I mean, if an all-knowing creator has already mapped out your entire life, you aren't really choosing anything, are you? Second is nature. You don't choose to obey gravity, and if you're starving, your biology forces you to seek food. That's not exactly freedom. And third is causation. If every single action you take is just the unavoidable domino effect of a prior cause, like your genetics, your childhood, your environment, then true independent free will simply vanishes. And you know what's funny? The source material highlights human hypocrisy so perfectly here. We engage in this relatable doublethink every single day. We'll casually drop profound statements like, not a leaf moves without God's will, which perfectly outlines a predetermined world, yet the absolute second someone cuts us off in traffic, we instantly scold them and hold them entirely responsible for their actions. We philosophically claim everything is predetermined, but practically, we demand total personal responsibility. Section 5. Physics and the Block Universe. Science meets ancient thought. Now, we are going to pivot sharply. We're taking that ancient Indian concept of mithya, the idea that the world is an illusion, and we're going to see how hard science and Einstein's theory of relativity might actually prove it. To wrap our heads around time, let's use a brilliant analogy inspired by the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Imagine you have green-tinted glasses, literally stitched to your skin. You can't ever take them off. You look out at the world and you swear it's green. But the world isn't actually green, right? Your structural lens is just forcing you to see it that way. Well, time and space operate exactly like this. Time isn't some river flowing outside of us. It's an inbuilt structural lens forcing our human minds to perceive reality in a specific, limited sequence. So the really crucial point here is the massive gap between our perception and physical reality. We perceive the flow of time. The past is gone, the future is unwritten. But modern physics suggests we actually live in a block universe. This means the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously. The entire universe is already mathematically written on a static fabric of spacetime. And wow, doesn't that map perfectly onto that ancient idea of mithya? A predetermined, illusory world that only looks like it's moving from our very limited perspective? If you're skeptical, let's walk through the mind-bending Andromeda paradox. Step 1. Einstein proved the speed of light is always completely constant. Step 2. To keep that speed constant, time itself actually has to bend and slow down depending on how fast you're moving. Step 3. Because of the massive distance to the Andromeda galaxy, if you are walking down the street and I'm sitting still on a bench, our relative motion means our concept of now is totally different. From your perspective, an alien fleet might have just launched from Andromeda. From my stationary perspective, that exact same launch is years in the future. Because time is relative to motion, your present is mathematically someone else's future, which means the future must already exist. Finally, Section 6, the free will paradox, the ultimate takeaway. So we've traced the philosophy of the human mind from ancient Vedic texts all the way to the quantum physics of the block universe. What does this all mean? I'm going to ask you again. If time is just a static block, if your future is already mathematically written into the fabric of spacetime, do you actually have free will? Modern neuroscientists and theoretical physicists are increasingly leaning toward a terrifying no. The freedom we feel to choose might just be the absolute grandest illusion of all. Which leaves us with the ultimate paradox. Whether it's ancient Indian philosophy telling us that reality is mithya, an illusion, or quantum physics telling us the universe is a pre-written block, the result is exactly the same. Free will might be a complete and total fiction. But, and here is the beautiful irony of it all, we have absolutely no choice but to wake up every single day, go to work, love our families, and live our lives as if our hands are firmly planted on the steering wheel. We are entirely bound to the illusion. So next time you make a choice, ask yourself, who really made it? Thanks so much for watching this explainer and keep questioning reality.